Great to see you again, guys. Looks like we do have strong humanoids ready to participate in what we're building here. So, Shannon, a pretty strange theme chosen by community.
The power of authority.
Yeah, the strangest thing is the only political scientist on the team is absent today due to personal stuff. But I think I think
Yeah,
we can take it till the end together with the community.
yeah. So, when we're talking about the power of authority here, um, what is your take on the power that we'll be talking about? Will we be talking about um, the humanoid Tao, or how we
Yeah,
set it
so
up, or
that's true that we can take it from different perspectives. For example, the first testnet that we launched, and actually that's a path that many companies take, is based on proof of authority protocol, right? That's a system where nodes trust each other because they have their identity at stake. Usually, these systems are, well, most of them are permission system because there is a permission system that somebody has to operate it, right? Compared to the other consensuses which are not based on this kind of permission and authorities. And yeah, this kind of blockchain is usually used by the companies, and that's not what we're going to talk about today. Because you can be sure, guys, we're building a system where just one person won't produce the block, but it will be based on the normal consensuses that are usually used in proof of stake. As we have seen, that's the only thing the market trusts. We have already seen the POA network based on accredited people who operate authorization services, but that didn't work at all because even if there is a permission of scanning your face to enter the system, there is still no trust between the nodes, and we should take into account. And yeah, today we're gonna talk about the authority in another sense, more in the DAO sense. But there is not only DAO, which is mostly an on-chain mechanism, but there are a lot of off-chain mechanics for coordination of people towards their common goals and vision. And that's where authority has even more influence over what happens.
so? Victor, uh, do you want to go and talk about history of it, or do we want to go into what we see as a path forward?
Well, I think we want. If you can talk about history, Shannon, I would be glad to. Unfortunately, I'm more of a theoretical person on our team than the one who operates with historical facts. I usually like statistics, but not the historical facts themselves. So, Shannon, given your tremendous experience in being the authority yourself in grand strategic games, for example, yeah, what's your historical take on it?
Well, as you know, um, I am not a poli sci guy, and of course, history is something that has always uh, interested me. Um, but of course, history is, I guess, what we would call, lessons learned. When you have um, a small community or country or village or whatever with uh, many, well, when there's a large gap of education, usually, authority tends to be centralized, where you have one guy that dictates everything, which can be good when you have a good ruler and can be very bad when you don't. Um, of course, as things evolved, you know, people want more voice. So you have systems where, you have parliaments, you have uh, many people um, who to lend that lends to the discussion, shall we say, in determining things. It becomes a little more democratic. I'm not quite sure if it's truly democratic, but more people tend to get involved in the decision making process. And the only problem with, let's say, modern day democratic systems is that you have a bunch of people who are basically tied to their constituents. Basically, have people who will make sure that their people, the people that voted them in, are happy and don't necessarily look at the overall uh, goal of, let's say, advancing the interests of the nation or of the world.
Yeah, as Max Weber put it, there are three types of authority. And when we talk about the governments, uh, yeah, we should take into account that it's mostly based on legal, rational authority, which is set by rules and stuff. But at the same time, in many places, you have that traditional authority that comes from the historic matters. Some of the countries still have kings. Some of the companies can't live without their executive officer. Yeah, but when we
Yeah,
talk about the, it's actually pretty, I think you can put it well into the context of decentralized organizations as well, because authority, sociologically speaking, is the legitimate or socially approved power. And you have it everywhere in order to achieve goals, because this power eventually coordinates people. The question is, who is in power? Is it like legal authority or traditional, or is it charismatic authority, which is like the third type, which usually reigns for a couple of years and becomes legal authority, as we see with the countries. Hopefully, that's not what's going to happen with the DAOs, but I'm not sure that I'm sure that it will happen to many decentralized organizations, because when they're token based, they are held by venture capitalists who want to hold on, sometimes indefinitely, their 20% of the token supply, and eventually charismatic authority can do nothing. There is only this rational authority of owning more through owning more money.
yeah, and this, in the traditional corporate structures, um, it really comes down to who holds the money. I've been in several startups um, and worked my way up, uh, building these companies, and eventually got on the board of directors, basically trying to ship, the company in the right direction. But in the end, um, the real authority is in the hands of the few shareholders who, well, because it's a business, they're really only interested in monetary gains. The only problem is, of course, some want long-term monetary gains and some want short-term turnover, which tends to affect uh, many things in the company, including the quality or the direction that the company has to go. So when we're talking about, let's say, uh, a a DAO, or a decentralized organization, um, how uh, how the ship is steered becomes very crucial. But um, especially because we have to have people with, so I say, a vision, but you don't want them. You don't necessarily want to totally be tied to the whims of a few people, or uh, those who put in a lot of money because they had a lot of money and they want more money. So,
Yeah, that's true,
um,
Shan. Actually, what's good about even token-based networks, would it be the blockchains themselves or the networks with their governance tokens placed on other blockchains, there is still like a chance that if the person with a lot of money uh, doesn't really have that acceptance by all the other part of the company or the uh, blockchain community. So basically what happened with Steam, it was a great example. So there was that social network Steam, founded long ago in crypto, the first one with many users. What happened is that in 2020, I suppose Justin Sun, the founder of Tron, who is not really beloved by blockchain community, he just purchased the Steam company. Steam company, like, is the main developer. Steemit, sorry, it was called, behind it. The blockchain, but the blockchain has all the other community token holders or just those who participate in development as well, uh, who actually were the that organization that holds the power to decide. And what happened when this hostile takeover of Steam it happened, and Justin Sun also wanted, with these tokens that he got, and the power of the Steam blockchain company in terms of development, he wanted to move it to his own network, but they all disagreed with him. I mean, the company didn't have real influence on what the token holders think and the broader community thinks, and the network was forked basically. So they made a copy of it, and now it runs out under a different name, uh, and it's doing much better than that conquered by Justin Sun network, Steemit. So that's something how you have to have approved power, legitimate power in crypto to sustain your authority over it and your power over it.
so how do you see, um, let's say, the path forward for Humanode?
Well, I don't suppose it will be a really easy path. Okay. Um, we will still have a lot of problems with authority, especially when the network emerges, right? Um, I would still say that not all the nodes are equal in terms of authority, first, because there are different rights that people have depending on their tier in our system. And like the equal rights could be accomplished only after 4 years of our development, but that's okay because our DAO won't be ready before that for fully permissionless functioning, like without the upgrades of our developers directly. At the same time, it will be important that like all the community is aligned. I think we have to have the legitimacy, first of all, of the goals of the community for these following 4 years in order to um, make true what we want to build together, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to say that I expect that there will be a trade-off or a fight between the rational authority of the DAO when people say, "Huh, like this guy, he's pretty active, he's charismatic, but hey, he doesn't even have the authority to propose really crucial stuff like changing the monetary policy." Uh, well, that's good because in the beginning we still have to have some control over the network to uh, stop it. But I hope that it will move more to the charismatic power, uh, to charismatic authority, rather than that rational speaking, looking at tiers of people.
Oh, I mean, actually, in our recent blog post, Humanode 101, we uh, lightly touched this, but you know, even if you are uh, just, you know, I wouldn't say, fresh, but if you have great ideas and you don't have the authority yet, I mean, all you need to do is to reach out to those uh, with authority or to the community to basically discuss ideas and and to make proposals. I mean, after all, yes, we have four tiers, but we have four tiers of governors. Having said that, um, even if you're just a governor, I mean, if you have great ideas and uh, you're able to, back your ideas, then those, and if the community uh, likes it, and the members that are working on it see logic in it, it will have a great effect. I mean, you can actually uh, pick up a proposal from anybody in the community. So I believe that the way we structured the governance is, yes, in the beginning we have a group of people that have worked on this for you know at least 1 to 2 years now, that have been building this from scratch and have a clear vision of where we want to go. So I mean, this is the driving force in the beginning, but as we get more involvement in the community, more people are interested. Um, Victor, let's say you have somebody that is uh, equally knowledgeable in, let's say, monetary systems, and we could actually converse with this person, exchange ideas, and come up with an even better system. Then that is something that uh, the whole quote unquote authority would be uh, discussing and voting on. And the only real authority that the governors have besides uh, voting is to be able to make proposals based on their tiers. So I actually think I mean, the way that the system is set up is, um, so I say, is actually fairly ideal, because you want people who are especially active, you know, uh, with knowledge, and possibly charismatic, but people who'd be actively involved in the community, that will be trying to uh, push this boat forward. Those of us that are there in the beginning are, we've set intermediate goals, and we want to work towards that. So we're working in that direction, and hopefully people that are interested in this will be hopping on the boat, trying to uh, push the boat forward uh, in the same direction. And if there are changes, well, we're all on the same boat, so we talk about it.
Yeah, sure. You're totally right here. So, but let's get to the topic of, okay, we understand that there will be authorities, right? The question is how we make more of them so that it won't end up to Andre Chronic case where he just leaves the project and the whole ecosystem of 30 projects uh, runs away as well, um, or at least their capitalization crashes like 10 times and users go away just because one person left. So how do you think, Shannon, we can avoid that?
The only way that you can really avoid that is if we have an active community that is engaged. I mean, I've seen too many startups or projects um, move forward just because there's, you know, one super engineer or one, you know, super visionary, and that person one day, slips in the shower, hits his head, and dies, or uh, loses interest. Well, uh, that tends to be the end of the project, unless you have people that um, really support the project. And uh, I guess I'm not quite sure if this is the best example, but there is the example of, let's say, Apple, which was a small company at one time and had some very charismatic people leading it. But even after, uh, Steve Jobs died, Wozniak left the company many years ago, but they were able to at least bring up a community of people that uh, believed in their vision and liked the brand that they were building. And the company somehow is still doing pretty well. I guess it's the same for Microsoft. You have, some charismatic leaders that, um, how shall I say, that build the ship well enough, and they brought in, enough talents to move things forward. So, as a humanoid community, I mean, I'd say just, our biggest challenge is being able to uh, build a community that uh, helps uh, bring new talents in and make the project, uh, how shall I say, uh, I wouldn't say interesting enough, but yeah, I mean, if you can make the project uh, inclusive and make it something, make the vision clear enough that people will join and want to assist, then our future is bright. But if we end up creating a system where it's just a few people saying, okay, this is the direction we're going, everybody follow, and um, does not listen to anybody else in the, uh, doesn't listen to the voices of the community, then, we would have failed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right here, Shannon, because the legitimacy of the system is earned by participation, by high rates of those people who are choosing an outcome. And if more people are in it, that means that uh, we have more chances to achieve it, even if we, for example, lose somebody from the like core authorities. At the same time, Shannon, do you remember when we talk about DAO and the power distribution? Um, we well agree in the core team, and everybody tells that there is no way we can't have a delegation mechanism because yeah, people are ready to
We
vote,
did talk about
but
that.
come on, not everybody should vote on everything, right? So you better have delegation to somebody who is knowledgeable about many aspects of Humanode, but at the same time you want to vote yourself. And what we wanted to have is that tree of concentration of voting power due to the delegation to the person, right? So this is the one way
Mhm.
to figure out who's the authority and see, like we really need to understand as a community who's the authority, because it's never just DAO. It's never like void mass of people or something like that. If you even have 100,000 people participating, you will still have much less, maybe 1%, who are leading their minds in terms of voting or what the company should do.
Yeah, well, it tends to be um, basically you just have to, everybody, including core members, are you just have to be um, active and visible, and you know, when you're talking about the power of delegation, one thing that I believe we really stressed was the ability to delegate, uh, but not be stuck there. Meaning, with a flick of a switch or a push of a button, you can change who you delegate your votes to, or
Yeah,
decide to vote for yourself. And without that mechanism, the delegation wouldn't really work.
that's
So,
true. That's true. We even thought, like, kidding between ourselves, that we should make delegation harder than voting yourself in the user experience way. It's like you have to input manually the public address of the person you want to delegate to each time we have a voting on any subject, so that it could be easier to choose yourself than to type it in.
yeah, yeah,
And
I remember we had quite a few discussions on how to move forward, and those discussions still continue to this day. So, okay, we're about halfway point in this fireside right now. If we have any questions here, questions or comments, and we don't have a large crowd today, so feel free to speak up and ask questions about.
Hello, if I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, hello everybody. What what do you have to say about the authority? If the in the mainnet is going to start with few nodes, I mean, the those nodes will always have more advantage, right? More power vote.
I wouldn't say so, but Victor, do you want to go ahead and answer this?
yeah, sure. That's something that we want to prevent. Basically, we aim at having around 1,000, we suppose, at early start, which is even less than what we have right now on the testnet. How it's going to be prevented? Well, it's pretty easy. You see, we have those things like proof of time and proof of devotion, and proof of time of running your node. At the same time, we have a decay of how high you can be ranked, and at a certain point you can get higher than the others newcomers. Basically, if you had the time of running a node for 1 month, well, that's already enough to prove that you can run a node. Then you will go with the voting and how many times you voted, how long you have been doing that. But if you earned that proof of devotion by proposing something, executing on your proposal, this will get you much higher than those who were, for example, from day one just running a node immediately. And the thing is, those who are from day one running the node, they may be voting but not contributing to the project directly. then basically they will be lower in the queue to enter the consensus set of validators. And of course, it will be increased because we expect to release the new consensus, which can handle 10 of thousands of nodes, less than in 1 year since mainnet launch.
Great, thanks for your response.
Yeah, that's really the question that we had ourselves internally, and we structured, this authorization mechanism in the DAO. Like, are you authorized to come to validator set or not? In a way that people who start first, they won't be always ranked higher than those who started afterwards. And yeah, we indeed have to have high mobility in the system. Actually, these kind of things I think will even change over time because we might introduce new types of what we like look at systematically, not people in our company, but I mean what the blockchain looks at.
Yep. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier in the Telegram chat, I mean, one of the key factors here is that we want to make sure that the system is stable. So basically, we don't want to uh, bite more than we can chew. So we might start with a fewer nodes. My guess is they won't be random people selected, but more of those who are uh, actively interested. Although this is something that I'm not 100% sure on, but seems the logical step. But we will be expanding the network to the point, hell, if the system becomes stable, we could probably have, 100,000 nodes. I don't know. It really depends on how the community develops and how stable the system is. So
This is something we hope to achieve in 4 years' time, but it requires new breakthroughs in consensus systems.
which requires uh, more developers and people who want
Yeah,
to uh, move the system forward and create new paths towards the future. So
exactly, Sean. Right. If you don't mind, Shannon, as we still have
mhm.
20 minutes, I wanted to continue our talk
Okay, go
because
ahead.
I get a small idea on. There is a concept called like power distance. It's the measurement of when less powerful members accept and expect that power is distributed unequally. And it came to my mind that there could be signaling voting that doesn't really lead to any outcome in terms of updates on the network, but the signaling voting, which should be, of course, private, should occur in order to see how those people that don't have a hierarchy or rank or like that represent most of the community, uh, those who are running nodes, of course, or even waiting for to get into validator set. So we should have that understanding of whether they think that power is distributed unequally, because you rarely have these kind of votings in the governments, right, across countries.
How would we accomplish this?
Well, basically, it can be by simple voting, yes or no. Like, do you think that power in Humanode is distributed unequally? But it's more or less supposed to. And we can, see in time if we track it every month what happens with our governance.
Hmm. Which means that we'll be needing to create a separate uh, voting system for this,
Oh,
an application. to vote?
Yeah, that's a good idea and a very simple application, actually.
Hmm. I wonder if I see. Uh, is that Dima down there?
Well, there are so many demons in the world and in my life that I have no idea.
That's true.
Uh, but welcome, welcome.
So, um, what I, obviously there are uh, simple, simple voting, simple polls that we could take. But if we can create an application for simple voting for all humanoids, that would solve a lot of issues, actually, especially when we run contests or just want a simple yes or no.
It's not that hard to implement. I hope it's something that will be multiple times done during our hackathon coming in at the end of May. And
Mhm.
I expect that when you have that biometric API, you can even, give that tool to other communities. For example,
Hmm.
people in the networks, well, where big VCs on the network, they really want to ask, hey, do you think guys they have the whole authority? Like, do you think early 16 that guys are deciding on everything here? Do you expect that our blockchain or decentralized protocol will be this unequal in the future, and people taking into account that they have just a little bit or a lot of those tokens will verify that they're unique human beings, and well, then those will see an outcome. And I expect that people with less tokens will think that yeah, nothing will ever change. And
Just out of curiosity here, okay? Something that I've been wondering about recently, or over the past 6, 7 months or so, is as you know, I've worked in startups and uh, basically have raised funds for various companies. And of course, when we raise funds, we tend to raise them from VCs. And of course, as Humanoid, we've gotten investments from some VCs. And um, in the traditional space, uh, you know, investments come with voting power, where, um, if you own 10% of the stocks, you own 10% of the votes. Now, in our last round, and probably in our next round, we're talking to various VCs, and surprisingly, some of the VCs that have approached us or have invested in us um, come from the quote unquote traditional VC scenes, where companies that might not have really invested in um, the crypto sphere in the past. How how do they react to the fact that they won't own a large block of voting power?
well, how did the reaction? Yeah, usually that's true. VCs target uh, exact stake in a company or even a blockchain. Like, hey, we need 5%, or no, we need 10% of the network. That's how they gather control over it. They can be sure that it's going how they want it, or it's going only when their founders or community vision is aligned with them. But I would say that they react with, okay, then we don't need a big stake in your protocol. That's what I usually saw.
Because
That's yeah.
y- yeah, because usually, right, when let's say somebody owns 5% of the company, and um, they they get richer quicker. Let's say when you come out with a new product, and um, revenue comes in from that product, and suddenly they become a lot richer. But let's say in Humanode, we're talking about uh, everybody that um, participates in the network. Basically, the uh, we become or we become equal. I don't know. I wouldn't use the word shareholders or stakeholders um, in whatever is developed on the network, right? And so it just always fascinates me on um, how the mind, what is going through their mindset when they uh, invest in blockchain projects. Is it just for the price hike in the that they hope will happen in the tokens, or um, I don't know. It's really interesting to see um, how you know w- what they expect out of these projects.
Now, Shan, I'm almost 100% sure that everyone expects the rising price because these are VCs, right? That's their job to generate profit. Unlike the community members, then that you can get from these VCs because they're um, not owning sometimes the VC itself. So we're glad to see. We usually see participation from the analysts or more like lower tier than the management or ownership tier people who are really participating. So it's a pretty strange combination of participation, those people from VCs who participate, and those people in VC who hold the money and wait for the increase in price.
Okay. Um, so we have about 13 minutes left. Do we have any uh, other questions? We'd like to open to general Q&A. Of course, if you're interested in asking questions concerning the DAO or the Power and Authority, feel free to. If you have other questions, once again, this is your chance. And don't be shy. Or, as usual, I can start randomly picking names. For example, Johnny.
Hey guys,
Hey, good to see you.
good to hear you.
Yep,
Hmm,
that's correct. All I can
glad to
see
see you.
is your zebra there. So, Johnny, any thoughts, any comments, any questions?
No, nothing comes to mind. Um, Nothing particular.
So, Johnny, do you think you're going to be the one who will try to grab the power in the Humanode network one day when you'll go on holiday far away from your regular job? You will sit somewhere and anonymously capture the authority in the network.
Yeah, I'll definitely do my best.
All right, we'll be expecting that. Uh, Not sure you will be transparent or not regarding your identity, but I think that spoken to you for quite a while, I will try to figure out under which name will you be there.
I'll be a bit transparent and blunt, like Elon trying to take over Twitter.
No, okay. Thanks for that. Do you think, guys, that Elon can take over Humanode?
I
Elon
don't
can
think
do
it'll be
anything.
possible. Well, yeah. Hell, he'll probably want to um, take over Humanode by developing chips to transplant in your brain and control the voting through there.
He can
Yeah,
start the
that's why.
cars with the metrics, no?
That's true. Actually, one of his companies is doing testing uh, with, using pigs, basically having chips implanted into the pigs' brains to try to capture various signals. And earlier on, we were saying that, well, as we move forward, instead of um, uh, starting these uh, fancy experiments using humans, we could do, the proof of pighood and have pigs run nodes using their transplants. Victor, what was that company?
Yeah, it was exactly that company run by that guy whose name starts with E. Yeah,
Yep, yep.
it's Neuralink. Yeah.
Can you guys see the link that I just shared on the chat?
Let's see.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Cool. Thanks for sharing. And who is that talking? I don't know him.
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. And somebody
I
posted,
came,
that's why we need
yeah,
humanoids. Cool, cool.
came
Oh, that's
across.
Deeks
I think
Dow.
someone
Okay,
retweeted it.
nice. Yeah, slowly everybody starts to understand that. I mean, I'm sure it will happen even more. Mm, be prepared, guys, as macroeconomically we're going into pretty huge recession, and that means that everybody will be affected. It will be bad for everybody. And once crypto market is not that crazy about rising prices, people will finally see its flows. And yeah, that's in these bad times. That's when we will come in and probably set new, better rules for governing the systems.
So, Victor, how fast do you think the recession will be coming?
Nobody knows. 6 to 18 months it starts. Maybe it has already started, or well, it's more or less, the key point, turning point right now.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens in Japan is crazy, never seen in the history of economics. But I won't delve into the details. Like, we can hold a macroeconomic session with the community later on, because when you understand globally what's going on, you see the urgent need to create technologies like Humanode in the world.
Henry, do you have a question?
No, no, I was just listening. I was saying that the recession here in Spain is, I don't know, inflation is like 80%, 8%. It's like crazy, no?
No,
Yeah.
actually, it's not crazy. It's crazy only compared to the last 10 years or so. Um, Before 2005, like if we take, for example, 80s to 2005, it has been well, about 18% in non-developed countries and about 6% or like five in developed economies. So yeah, we're more or less coming back to the stable high inflation because the inflation
Yeah,
that we had was too low, like incredibly low. Uh,
welcome hard times.
yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, I was preparing for the high times since university. We're all talking about how the latest monetary system set up in the 70s is too old already. It was 10 years ago. So now I thought it would start earlier, but we had good times recent years. Well, that was the end of the party. So please, guys, stay safe, stay rational. Don't waste your money on unneeded products, and yeah, don't buy shares before here's due diligence, so to say. This kind of inflation will persist for a while.
True.
Yeah, well, Victor, as being me being in Japan, uh, the the year before I graduated college, uh, the bubble popped, and everything went crazy here. We went into a recession um, that lasted what 20 years, and we still haven't crawled out of it. But
Well,
what makes things kind of interesting for the average person, let's say. I used to do, I was a journalist. I was a photojournalist actually, and I had to do, long stories in fairly prestigious magazines. I did most of the top magazines in Japan, and the amount of money that we got per article um, in, let's say, uh, 1995 or the year 2000 was the same amount of money that people got for an article in the late 60s and early 70s. And um, recently did, oh, recently, last year did an article for a Japanese magazine. And actually, the amount of money we received was exactly the same as when I first started out in journalism in '92. So it's kind of crazy here.
yeah, it's already have been crazy. Now expect what awaits us in the next about 3 years. Um, it will be even worse. So people, so oh my god, it's not something to laugh at. People will have less than they could have had 40 years ago. Oh my god, taking into account the inflation that happened, the devaluation of currencies. I mean,
Yep. Well, um, we're almost out of time here. If anybody else has any questions, any comments, this is your chance. And if not, Victor, do you want to go for the closing remark?
okay, so the closing remark, I would say, the only way for us to restrict the power of authority in the network where people are supposed to be more or less equal is active participation, as Shannon said, and transparency in what everybody's doing. Because sometimes, people come and say they did a lot of stuff, but in fact, they were controlling other people. And the last thing, of course, to try to get rid of the cognitive bias because people like authorities. It's a really easy heuristic to use in decision making. So please don't refer to authorities, don't just follow the authorities, and try to clear your cognitive biases in order for us to create a better network. I mean, that's what we will try to do as well.
Yep. Thank you. And really, um, my one of my philosophies in life comes down to um, independent investigation of the truth, and active participation, especially if it is something that you uh, find interesting or want to get involved with or feel that is important. Uh, participate, be active, and B, just make sure that you don't um, blindly believe everything that is said. I mean, if I say that there's a pink elephant outside of the room, he might be there, he might not be there. Uh, Try to at least look out the window to see if he's there. So, anyway, thank you everybody for joining us in this fireside, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you all.
Thank you.